Can you guys, oops, recording screen, I just want to say show my screen. Hopefully this screen, I'm able to capture it. Okay, the reason why I want to do a recording is that whoever missed it could have the same information. Now, okay, welcome to IBI. Today I'm going to basically talk about kind of like questions you guys have and all that stuff. It's going to be like a kind of a live demo where you guys can just ask me anything. I was just trying to answer you as much as I can. You guys have already gone through the video, right? Like how to set up all that stuff and all that, all the mumbo jumbo crap that you guys have to gone through. Is there anything that you guys have any question with before we start? Or nothing? Okay. If it's nothing, that's fine. I'm just going to just talk about some stuff, so lunch and learn training. Now, if you guys want to kind of have access to like all the lunch and learn and all that stuff in the past, you guys can go into the iDrive, and there's one called the CAD, and under there's like a lot of like lunch and learn and training. So that's basically local. A lot of the stuff I've done for over like 11 years, I just punch them in there, and then you can get like all the videos. I do post up some of the videos online, okay? If you want the YouTube videos, you can go up, just look at my name and stuff like that, and then you can find it. So today I'm just going to be going into the office procedure, okay? So office procedure should be under this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, welcome to IBI, okay? So how we run is that we try to be very inclusive. We're not trying to bear you down with all this standard BS that some offices want you to do it. We're very open. We're always open to new ideas, suggestions, and stuff like that. So if you guys have any issues with the like support and such as that, you can always contact me on Explorer and Daniel Friesen. Probably you guys met Daniel Friesen. And we also have like our local champions as well. So if you want to ask, these people are able to help. Now, if you cannot find those people, there's always that CAD help information, okay, if you throw them up. But for licensing, like let's say if you cannot get AutoCAD license, those guys are the support. Do not go to IT because all of it deals from this CAD help. Because CAD help deal with all of licensing, including if you want V-Ray for SketchUp, if you want some sort of like specific license for specific product, those are the go-to people, okay? We also have other people, okay, not just us. We have David Birch is our Calgary contact. He's the Western kind of global portfolio manager for the Ken West. And we have a whole bunch of guys. If you want content specialists, we have Jason as well. And there's another one, Dylan, back east, that's also doing it. I can also deal with content. Let's say, for example, if you have Revit content that you wanted to, like, you know, ask me to find, I could direct you to the right location. And we also have other technical support as well. So, yeah, please feel free to contact them if you have any questions. Okay, what is the one word when dealing with Office CAD and BIM standard? What do you guys think? So that's the reason why I throw out the question out there is because not everybody likes to follow stuff. They like to do their own thing. So what is your one word that you can describe about standard? Any word, I don't care. Just throw it out there. Nothing? All right. Well, sometimes you could say some people have a negative connotation because they say that it's very restrictive. Okay, it's very restrictive. It doesn't do what I want. It doesn't do what I need, and I don't follow it. Okay, that's always the common thing. But the one thing that you guys have to realize is that it's not you. It's the person that's going to be going to pass down those work to those people, and how they're going to be dealing with that. And that's one thing, a major issue we had in our office, because people tend to have their own thing, does their own thing, not telling anybody, and not telling the team, and they did something, and then they say, not my problem, it's up to you, okay? Those kind of attitudes we want to eliminate as much as possible, because you're working in a team environment where you're going to be, you know, working with mechanical, electrical, you kind of have to be more receptive, you know, you kind of have to adapt to what they need, right? If you just give them saying, this is your plan, just deal with it, right? They're going to hate you forever. That's just kind of a thing, right? It's just that sometimes if you make their life harder, they're going to make your life even harder next time when they send you files. Okay, it's just kind of a thing. You kind of have to be mindful and respect for people. It's not about CAD standards. It's about like the processes that we deal with on a daily basis. Like some of them are from you guys or whoever, and some of the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, some of the faults that we find, and we want to correct that and tell people that do not use this method because there's so many implications, there's so many faults. Okay, some of these words, like I said, you could say archaic, learn to adapt to current structure, do not follow, don't ask, and don't have time to learn. So most of the time when users deal with CAD standards, they always turn a blind eye, right? I always do a lot of this lunch and learn, like weekly and stuff like that. A lot of times, I know that everybody's busy, but that's okay. That's just why I post it up. You can learn it on your own time, but just be mindful that when you work on a project, some of the stuff I've talked about is what's supposed to go into how you do it inside a project. Because so many of us, regardless of what level they're in, there's some of them project managers may not even know what the CAD standard. They don't care. Okay, they say ask that person, which is fine. But as long as you can educate them, don't just say, okay, I'm just going to follow you, right? And I'm just going to do exactly. They may not know everything inside the CAD relation and stuff like that. Okay, so this is my job, is basically to educate people. Is that it's also your responsibility to teach the higher up management and stuff like that, because these sometimes may not be receptacle of receiving some of this things. And sometimes what happens is that project may get a wrong turn. Like what happens is that sometimes we did a Revit project, and then the upper up management saying that, oh, just do it in CAD, finish it, right? And then what happens is that the trickle down becomes a much, brutal sequences, because what happens is that people miss out on the opportunity to kind of teach the upper management about why we should keep this within the Revit side. Okay, the other thing is that market is adapting. It's changing very rapidly, and how would you adapt, right? I mean, I met with a lot of offices for the past couple of years, and a lot of them are saying, we're changing. Revit is becoming, starting to become more and more adaptable, and then they have to kind of work within that kind of realm. So when users say, I want to basically just do it in CAD because that's what I'm used to it, don't think about, now. Think about future 10 years down the road, because some project managers, I feel sorry for them, because I've been telling them you should be getting into Revit, and now they're being put on a job for 4 years and not learn any Revit. And then later on, when you have new projects, they're going to be getting a Revit project, and how are they going to deal with this? They don't know, right? So this is why I said, like, adapt to technology. Okay, don't be like shy about not learning it, because it's going to be basically coming down the pipe. Okay, you're going to have a lot of projects that's going to be Revit. It's going to be sometimes a bit CAD, but most of the time it's going to be just Revit, and then how are you going to be dealing with that?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So far it's been like Revit is easy to work with once the design is frozen and you're in kind of like a working drawing stage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a bit too chunky and less flexible at a design stage, and we're facing that issue with one of the projects. So, and as a project manager, if you're involved in all stages of the project, but not necessarily working, drawing in every stage, and it's likely that you'll be drawing mostly in the design stage, but less and less in the working drawing stage. So how do you keep up with Revit in that case,
Oh, okay.
And it's still not, like, the project that I'm working on is still in CAD, at least in the design stage.
That's okay,
and a part of it, our Edmonton office is trying to do in Revit in the design stage, but it's a disaster. Like a big disaster. It's eaten up all the fields, but no results so far yet.
Right. Well, I think it all comes down to advice, like who's the good advice and who's going to be doing it. Yeah. Because if you do not know who's doing what, they could eat up your budget like crazy. I have one project, that has massive team for DP stage.
Yeah.
I'm basically looking at it and saying, why do you need that many teams? They say that, oh, just to get the DP done. I was just saying, no, just have like two person.
Right.
Just one strong person and one junior guys, and then you will not eat up that project. But I think it comes down to planning. Mostly it's planning, and then know the skills of the user.
But is Revit suitable for design?
You can, yeah.
At all?
Oh yeah. I'm going to show you kind of examples, some of the stuff that I've done. Okay, it's doable. It's just that what I'm seeing more and more is that user not keeping up to date with some of the skill. Right. That's where the question is always going to ask, because sometimes people are so, oh, I know Revit, right? But the thing is that there's so many aspects of Revit that the user may only know a little bit, like one portion of it. They may not know, oh, it can do this, it can do that, and then you can do a whole whack of stuff. It's something that they haven't explored. So this is why I always say plan and ask the advice, right? Because the thing is, it's more to do with asking the right question before you committed to adding that person, or else they would just chew up your fees and not care what's been done. So, all right. So currently our office, we're sitting at about 55% Revit capability. This is how I see it. It's that I always see it more in the phases. Working drawing side of things, we're about like 60-40. From the design side, it's still 0 or 20%. Because the thing is that designers are more susceptible to using either SketchUp or AutoCAD just to get things up and running. But they don't see that there's a lot of other ways that they could approach Revit, to do their design stuff. Most user, this has always come up, right? They always hate uncertainties, okay? The thing is that if they don't like uncertainties, it's like, why bother pursuing it? But the thing is that I always give that attitude is that if you don't try, you're not going to learn, because you can stuck doing the CAD job over and over and over again. But the thing is that the fees keeps going up and up and up, and then we have to pay the user more. But our fee to the client always reduced down to almost bare to nothing. So how do you adapt to that, right? So as the user cost going up, fees going down, so you kind of have to find that balance. So this is why a lot of the Revit project, there's a benefit, because you're using less people, but at the same time, you're training them more to become, let's just say, a builder, right? You know how in the past, in architecture, they always say that the architects are the builders, structural engineer, mechanical, and electrical, or whatever, right? Wrap in one. So what Revit is actually doing is that going back to that kind of a scenario where you are an architect, you are a structural engineer, you are electrical, mechanical, and you're a contractor, all wrapped in one. So the possibility is endless, just depending on how much you want to learn, okay? So you've probably seen this screenshot all the time, right? Okay, this is a CAD plan. You have plans, and then everybody just goes to here. It is what it is. Revit. The thing about Revit Plan is that there's so many aspects of it. It's a data thing that user can get out of this, okay? It's just not just one person does this, the other person does this, and then, just mash it up together and just call it a day. Revit is about information, and that information could be useful if generated properly. The other aspect what we are looking at IBI is that we want to take that BIM data that we created and then use it for something else. Let's say if you want to sell content to, let's say, manufacturer, or use our BIM data, what we built, and then give it to city as kind of like, plan checking what's been done, and then pull that data into, whichever architects want to use it. So we can do that, and then that could become a potential revenue stream down the line, okay? So think of it as BIM has a lot of potential, but it's untapped at the moment, okay? Still, like a lot of time when we're doing SketchUp, we're just basically redrawing stuff. Where BIM, if you have like a central server hosted either by the city or whoever, it's like Google, then you could potentially pull that Revit data or whatever data it is, and then put it on your plan, and you don't have to do anything, okay? That's kind of like the idea, right? Like everybody just have this Revit thing, and then, how did this resource get pulled together? The other thing is that one thing I always find it very fascinating in our office is that everybody works with so many multiple platforms, right? So you go over the process where in a submission, you use so many different programs, and, you know, at the end of the day, when you do updating, it's like, where do I go? You know, the thing is that we want to encourage people to simplify their workflow, okay? Just don't think about like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, right? But just simplify it, you know, make way. Sometimes you don't, like right now, I don't see the necessary using SketchUp because I'm very proficient in Revit. So it becomes kind of like a tool, how to use it. Sometimes I use SketchUp because I have to take that SketchUp model and give it to a consultant that wants to use it. So how do you take the Revit data, which is massive, and then kind of like downgrade it down to SketchUp level? So those are potential kind of like, you know, workaround kind of a thing. So don't think that, okay, don't say trash the SketchUp out of your workflow, but use it as kind of a way to enhance, you know, capability and potentially use that as kind of like a learning tool. Because that's one thing, everybody has expertise in every different programs, but one thing we don't have is that we don't know who's good at what, and they don't teach people, so everybody just does their own thing. So we never capture a lot of this user experience, and they don't teach other people, oh, this is how I do it, how I overcome it, and everybody just does their own thing. So we want to capture that, but for now, we just say simplify your workflow, okay? So what I mean by simplify workflow is that if you're using Revit from start to beginning, all you have is that just one flow, and then this is basically sub-program that basically supporting your Revit side of things, okay? Your data will always update, so basically this is your primary data, and then the rest is just like supplementary. All right, now, here's some of the projects that we can do, okay? This is design development. This is all done in Revit, okay? No special tools. Again, this is like kind of like Revit. You can design a lot of stuff, just given the context of what you want, okay? And also ask the right question, like ask the right people, because that's one thing that we always miss in our office is that people just trust somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, okay? That's always the case. If you ask the right people, then you can produce your project on timely manner, on budget, and then it will not kill your overall project, and then you have to convert back to CAD. Okay, so some of the samples I just illustrated, and then this one, again, this is done in Revit, and there's no other software I'm using. And what I did in this particular case is that I just basically slapped a kind of like a hand-drawn like watercolor background and just slap on behind Revit background. It looks kind of nice, and kind of like the level of detail that you can do. Okay, it's at Revit. Okay, and kind of a section you can do. So it's very presentation kind of oriented. It is achievable. It's just that do the user want to go to that kind of a level? And also you can take that and then just use it for rendering for 3D Max, V-Ray, and then we're using Enscape and some offices. If you don't know what Enscape does is that it basically pulls Revit model, and then you can do real-time rendering at the same time and just save a snapshot so that you don't have to go to 3D model, all the materials, everything's set to Revit, and then push it to the Enscape, and it'll just do the rendering. Okay, question?
So do you have like a different setup for Revit for conceptual design as opposed to working drawings, or how is it?
We do, but the thing is that I have to train the people thinking how to use it, because I think what the major issue in our office is that everybody has different backgrounds. They may not have all the expertise from the working drawings and stuff like that. Because I've seen a lot of projects, what happens is that people copy the working drawing stuff and put it into conceptual design, or vice versa, and then it just fails. The thing is that they need constant mentoring, and it's just teaching them how to do it, and this is the conceptual how I would do it, and then approach it, et cetera.
That was my question. And when I said our office in Edmonton, so it's a separate, they're treating it like a separate project altogether. They're managing everything.
Right.
But so far, it's as a part of our collaboration. So our Vancouver office is collaborating with the Edmonton office.
Yeah.
They're working in Revit, we're working in CAD, but even their Revit at a conceptual design stage was brought in because of all the reasons that you said, like, you can integrate everything in one software, and especially the site was challenging, it's a little slow. So they thought that with Revit, it's easy to resolve. Like if you're building the model, placing it on site, you can cut different sections.
That's correct.
But so far, none of that has happened.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think they need somebody that high level that's done.
So, and that's why I asked you,
Sure.
So how do you train, like how do you set up? It seems like you need Revit for two different reasons, right? One is for DP, conceptual design, and one is post-DP once it gets into working drawing stage.
But it could work all the ways. Like I use, like this project right now, this project I'm working on is actually a DP, and we treat that as a DP and then goes into working drawing.
It's a huge advantage because the same model you just develop on it, build more on it for working drawings, right? It is a big advantage. Everyone agrees.
It is.
But so far, has our office used it in such a way for any project like that, or? Well, because I've been in every office I've been in, it's a constant battle.
It is.
It's like, when do you bring in Revit?
Yeah.
And then some offices, even previous office, we did the conceptual design in Revit, but the working drawing team, the technical drawing team, threw that model out the window. They prefer to build it in their own way. And it defeats the purpose of having Revit.
Yeah, this is why, it all comes down to, some people like to become a designer, and they do not learn the working drawing side of things. For me, I like to do everything, because this is how you learn to become the master builder. And then, because the thing is that if you're not going to learn the whole process, you're not going to understand how things put together and all that stuff. And then, that's where I find that there's a lot of challenges in our office, is that some people are willing to learn, some people not willing to learn. I mean, we have a mixed bag of everybody, right? So at the same time, I want to be receptive and just try to educate them as much as you can, because you may have experience that they may not have. At the same time, just mentor them. Because that's one thing that I always find people just don't do that anymore. I was just like a master-apprentice relationship kind of a thing in the past, where you take on apprentice, and then you just teach them the way of how carpentry, how they used to do it, right? So they pass down all that knowledge to you, and then you are able to basically pass it down to the next person. Revit, we have to treat that as the same way. You cannot simply just say, pigeonhole this person into a corner and just make them do drawing like AutoCAD. Doesn't work. Okay, we have several projects that's already done like that. All the time, it's always fail. Okay, because they're not getting the knowledge that they need. They don't know everything, but they're put into a role where they have to do everything, and it's becoming it's a telltale sign. I've written lists and then give it to the managers saying that, you know what, you guys have to, be more upfront with this, and then, you know what, if you don't know Revit, that's okay. It's opportunity to learn. All right. Now, you've probably seen this. I mean, this is kind of like conceptual. You can do it inside Revit. I mean, it's just the simple stuff, and then all the filters, everything, I just put it as a background. Okay, it's all done within Revit. There's nothing. You don't need Photoshop, nothing. Whenever the model changes, everything changes. So that's the advantage of it. Yeah, all this background, all of this, it's all within Revit. Okay, what it is that I apply filters like a texture mapping and all that stuff, and then just marry them together. Okay. Any questions so far? Some tools and useful to me. Okay. Some question people always ask is that in AutoCAD they always say, why do you disable Ref Edit? Okay. We disable for a reason. Okay. What I find in the past is that people ref edit, they don't clean their drawings, and what tends to happen is that all the junk drawings get into the drawings and it corrupts everybody's file. And it was a daunting task to clean it out, and I decided, you know what, disable it. And also the other thing is that I do a lot of dynamic blocks. What dynamic blocks does is that you treat a block and then you can stretch it multiple ways you want, similar to how Revit does it with families and all that stuff. If you want to approach it more like a BIM kind of environment, you kind of have to think about, the dynamic blocks, it's like a family. You just put it in there. You can say what size you want and then just plug it in. So that's why I disabled Ref Edit, because Ref Edit would destroy dynamic blocks. So that's the reason behind it. If not, fine, you can use it, but as long as the user clean it out. But try not to use Ref Edit as much as possible, because, there's so many things could go wrong, will go wrong, okay? It's just that user would say, oh, it's easier for me, but think of the consequences of all the stuff that you could go do it wrong. And one project in particular, someone rep-edited the dynamic blocks for a door. And what happened is that when they saved it, and the next time when people want to change the door size, they can no longer do it, right? Because, you know, people rep-edit stuff. And then how to fix it? You have to replace all the doors in the drawings. You know, that wasted so much time. You know, it's simple stuff like that could kind of mess up the whole project, right? Similar to how Revit does it as well. If that small little things, if people say, oh, I don't want to do this, I'd rather do it this way, blah, 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 then you know what? More work for the person that's going to be dealing with this. Two things doesn't make it right, right? This comment illustrated. It's the same thing, you know. A lot of it, I'm just trying to encourage you, is that I'm not going to get too technical, but it's just more to do with philosophical kind of a thing, approach to people. It's just that sometimes you can do it too, doesn't make it right. Okay, if you want to pass down all this mistakes that you've done, and then you're not doing yourself a service. You're just basically everybody a disservice. Now, for bin value, you notice that when you have the model, it's only the surface, but all the information, the data contained within it, that's gold mine. Okay, it's something that we, as an organization, they don't value this, right? They only say, oh, it does 3D model, and then we submit it. It's not useful for us, blah blah blah. But you have to think about what you can get out of the model. You know, one particular that our client is looking for is that they want to get the ratio between the glass and the surface, like glass and solid surface, and then sometimes they want to do view study, cone study, shadow study, and do a lot of this complicated things. You know, Revit does it pretty well. Just that how you take that information and make it, you know, what you want. Now, the other thing I didn't talk about is that currently everybody does working drawings. It's all 2D plans and everything. But think about 10 years from now, what that's going to translate into when you use Revit. You no longer have to put in all this dimensioning and all that stuff, because all that details, everything is like a model. I had a discussion with this contractor who was saying that, you know, what's the point of us putting all this information on a piece of paper, and, you know, contractor's going to use our model with this dimension off. The reason why we're doing it is because the city wants a set of documentation. If the city decided to change, saying we're going to do all digital submission, then the whole office has to change their kind of attitude towards how to submit really accurate BIM models. Okay, it's something we're not there yet, but sooner or later, 10 years down the road, that could happen. Okay, how do we do that? How to improve your skills, the whole office? Okay, so what I always do is that if you find that your project, you did something that you think has a benefit for the entire office, share it. I mean, I always do that because a lot of the stuff that the pains, the growing pains that I've dealt with always goes into this lunch and learn, because sometimes some people have that question, burning question, saying that I could not solve this, and then someone else did solve that. Okay, some people, they like to hear it. Some people, I don't care, I'm just doing my own thing. But the thing is that sometimes they come back to me a couple months down the road, oh, how do you solve this? I already explained to them on the previous thing. So at the same time, it kind of put a burden on me, but at the same time, say, you know what, since the person they just want quick answers, I'm just going to give it to them. But the thing is that we always strive to make our workflow better. If you have a lot of, you know, experience on doing certain things, share it. Don't just, you know, keep it to yourself, because one of the biggest challenges is that if you keep it to yourself, you'll never improve. Okay, you could do the same thing over and over again. Nobody cares what you do it, right? Share it, and then that becomes part of the standardized workflow. Okay. Any questions so far? Kind of short, but okay. Should I show you guys like how we set up like template within AutoCAD so that you guys have like all the information? Okay, so let's say I'm going to open up AutoCAD. Okay, let me close that. When you first start over with AutoCAD, come on. When you click on the new, it's going to ask you what kind of a template you're going to be using. So the first template you're going to use is that it's either ACAD ISO or ACAD. ACAD is basically means that it's imperial template. ISO means that it's a metric template. But if you don't know what you want, click on this little button right there and say open with template or open with no template, metric, or imperial. Okay? Click on that. There you go. It's fine. The next thing you want to do is that when you click on this, you see that you only get one scale added to this. Oh, before I do anything, I forgot to ask, like, how many of you guys have this IBI group drop-down menu installed in their machine? If you don't have it, I can demonstrate how to load that quickly. Okay. If you don't have it, yeah, let me know. I could do a demonstration on that. But okay, since everybody say they have it, the next thing you want to do is that you want to add your scale. Okay, you see that there is the IBI group annotated scale. But if you want all the scale, if you don't want just only one, let's say for example this is imperial. This is like basically when I put it in, let's say 1/2 inch, it's going to add 1/2 inch to the scale. Okay, simple as that. But if you want to add more, or you want to add all of it, all you have to do is just click on the custom and hit that reset button. And what it does is that it's going to ask you, you want a metric scale, imperial scale, or both. Do not choose both. I mean, this is stupid. But if you are working with projects that have both scale, then that's probably wise. But in this kind of a case, if you're using one scale, then just choose imperial. What happens is that's going to load in all the scale. Okay? By the end of the day, whatever scale is not used, it's going to get deleted. Okay? So just don't worry about it. You can just keep resetting back just to get those scales. The next thing you want to do is that this is where the content is supposed to be. So what user does is that just go through the architecture. Okay, we have imperial standard, documentation, and design. Standard means that if you want to add layers, text, dimensions, all those standards. Documentation is basically, you know, all the bubbles, all the stuff in there. And the design is basically all doors, walls, stuff that you're going to be using for architecture. Okay. Now, what happens is that when you click on, let's say, imperial standard, you have layers, and when you click on text, let's say you're using 3/32 equivalent to 2.5 millimeters. You click on that, and what it does is that it reacts to the scale that you put in. Okay, let's say test or whatever. Now, once you change the scale to, let's say, I want to be 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. We put the same text. See that it becomes bigger. So you no longer have to go in there and scale your drawings based on what size. Because in the past, that's what a lot of people does. Don't do it, okay? Think of this as kind of like it's a Revit thing, okay? Because whatever size you change, you put it in, it's going to be a receptacle. The problem is that whenever you add a new size, this thing just will not react to that new size. So what you have to do is that, again, you kind of have to go in there, click on this, and add that scale. So what you could do is that you could use multiple scales for just, you know, one drawing. So you don't have to repeat the information. So you can have one scale that's going to be 1/4 inch, and then one scale for 1/2 inch, and basically it covers both sides of things. In the past, what people tend to do, let's see, where's my 1/2 inch? Oh, right there. What people does in the past is that they usually have two texts for two different scales. One is a 1/8, one is a 1/4 inch. That's double the information. That's how we do it. We put it on a layer and then we just freeze it for this scale and freeze it for this scale. That eliminates pretty much all that stuff. Okay? As long as you understand the concept of this, you're fine. Okay? Any questions so far with this? Pretty easy, right? Okay, the next step I want to showcase is that adding templates. Okay, where's your template for your layout? Now, if you are trying to plan for to do a plan, here, let me back. Come on, I like to move this right there. Let's say you're working on a project and you're not sure what's the size. Let's say the client has this particular project. Okay, let's say this is just a project, and you get like this kind of a building, and you want to plan out what's the size of the page. The first thing I would do is that you're always going to add to scale. One is 1/4 inch, the other one is 1/8, which is equivalent 1 to 50 and 1 to 100. So the first thing I would do is that I'm just going to add that scale, 1/4 inch and 1/8. The next thing you want to do is that you want to figure out what paper size you want it on the sheet. This is a model space, okay? You want to figure out what size it is. So the first thing you do, let me double check if this is the correct size. Sorry, when I did the demo, I didn't scale the drawings, unfortunately. So let me double check. Oh, okay. So this is actually converted from PDF to DWG. That's fine. I'll scale this up so that you understand the concept. Okay, I'm going to blow it up to 100 times. So what you want is that you want to figure out what's the paper size. This is where this thing comes in, reference title block, okay? So what this does is that when you put it in, it will react to the scale right there, okay? I'm going to basically put it in there, okay? What it does is that it plans out that this paper size may be too big, okay, for 1/8. If you want, you can say, I want to size it down to Arch E1, okay, let's say this one, okay, that looks a little bit better. But if you're doing like DP phase, sometimes you would want to figure out, okay, keep it within Arch D, right? So what this does is that it plans out and see that, can we get it down to smaller page size before you attempt to do your project? Because one thing that I always find a lot of users don't do is that, oh, they just put in a template and then just go with Arch E, but they're showing too much stuff, right? So always plan out stuff. Let's say this is your building, and you have a tool that tells you kind of like what you expect from a page size, and then you select a template, what you want to choose, and then you say, that's the paper size I want. So for this case, I would say, let's say I'm going to go ANSI, okay? ANSI is American Standard, if you know. Half size of ANSI is 11/17, okay, if you don't know that, right? 50%. So if you want to plan it out, I always do that, okay? It's either you do Arch D, like for DP side, or you do ANSI. If you can get it down to ANSI, that's great because 50% is 11/17. So you're killing two birds with one stone, okay? Sometimes client likes that, and what happens is that they provide a lot of the booklets, and then you basically, when you have an ANSI D with vertical, you can just plot this out as 11/17, and then everything works. Okay, so this one, ANSI D does work. Okay, the next step is that once you have this thing established, let's say this is good, I want this at 1/8. Okay, next thing you want to do is that you want to select the sheet set now. Okay, if you're a sheet set, click on this. Now, what it does is that there's a lot of template in there, so you want to pick the one that you want. So you go to architecture. It asks you, okay, what kind of a stage you want. Sorry, this is small for people. You have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or stage all. So what it means by that is that stage 1 is only conceptual design when you're doing like very, very like early on, design development and then working drawings, or you want to go all out, basically stage from the beginning till the end. For now, I'm just going to say I'm going to go design development, and it asks you number of levels of folders. So what this means is that, think of it as an XREF, right? How many XREF it gets before it goes into a sheet. So when you go level 1, it means that you only got element, which is your XREF, and it goes into the sheet. So you have one level of reference. There is one called the no subfolder. What it means by that is when you go to element, you see that there's a subfolder. So when you go into this element, it has no subfolder. When would you use this? So with subfolder, if your drawings, you have like over hundreds and hundreds of XREF, then it's a good idea to put it with the subfolder. If you are working in like, let's say, demolition, and you only got like 5 or 6 XREF, having no subfolder makes perfect sense because you can just have all that drawings in just one basket rather than splitting them up into based on very, very little. But I'll leave it up to the user, but they have to kind of learn like what kind of a context they're working on, right? Because they have to kind of think about planning things out before they do it. If they don't do it, then yeah, that's where hell breaks loose. People just do their own thing, and then yeah, okay. if you're not sure, you always come and ask me. I'll just explain to you exactly what a lot of this thing means. Okay, let's say for this one, I'm just going to use two-level reference. So what happens is that you have elements, it goes to the views, then goes to the sheet. I think in one of the documentation, it shows you kind of like the puzzle pieces kind of a thing. I'm not sure if you've seen that. That's kind of like the idea of it. And what you do is that you take this, and then I'm just going to make a copy of that. And then you can just dump it in anywhere you want in, let's say, in desktop. For this one, I'm just going to put it in J drive and say put it under user clean weekly. Okay. Now, if you guys want to share stuff, I'm not sure if you guys know the user folder. You guys know the user folder or no? Okay. If you don't know the user folder does, is that if you want to share it with anybody, just put it in there because it gets deleted every week, right? It's just kind of like a temporary stuff. So sometimes I send people, like, let's say you need a patch, and IT say, oh, can you download the patch? Because some of the patch requires my login to access it. So what I did is that I would download that patch and put it on the server for Adrian or whoever, then they could just say, just go to that folder and then they have access to it. If you don't delete it, that's fine. It would just self-purging. Okay, so if you're one of those person that likes to leave things there, yeah, just dump it there. So under for Simon, okay, so what I have is that you have a project 000. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. But what you're gonna do is that, oh, try again. Okay, I'm not gonna bother with that. What you do is that you just copy that template, rename it. Okay, just call like 000 project. Could be anything. And what you have to do is that just double click on this. And what the user can do is that they can start doing new sheet, okay, A000, and then cover sheet. Okay, what happens is that when you double click on this, you notice that it basically come up with this kind of a page setup. Okay, simple as that. Now, if you want to change a lot of the stuff, like the reason why I put in this globe, that's a placeholder for your client's logo. Okay, so if you're working with somebody, okay, I'm going to open up Extract. It's going to be an Extract. The reason why I put in Extract is because when you change the sheet, all the client logos is going to be where it is. Okay. Later, I'm going to show you how to change the sheet very easily inside Revit. Oh, inside AutoCAD, sorry. All right, so you go open it. Okay, you have the globe. You go to the IBI group, okay, and then you go to the architecture, and then you can go to design, and there is one called the depot, and under the depot, there's the logo and symbols, okay? So if you have a client logo, this is why I recommend, just send it to me, I'll just put it there. So let's say you're using Fraser Health, for instance. Just copy that, and then paste it there, okay? Just place it relatively to there, and you just go erase it. And when you save it, now this is going to be saving into that project template, okay? So next time, okay, I'm just going to say no. I'm going to close out of that. And there you go, there's your Fraser Health. Okay, now if you want to remove this, let's say it's a client name, I don't care. It's very simple. All you have to do is that you go to right click, go to properties, okay? Scroll all the way down until you find you see there's a client name and address. You could put a space. I don't recommend it. What I typically do is that I would call up, press Windows button and R, and I always use call the character map, C-H-A-R-M-A-P, okay? What character map does, it's a representation of whatever symbols you have inside this font, and you can paste it into your this, and then it will basically become permanent. So I'm going to scroll all the way down until you find like a blank spot. You could just, let's see, where's my good blank spot. You have so many symbols that you can use. Oh, this is a good blank spot. So you can say select that, copy, okay? Because if you use the normal space button, what tends to happen is that this will return as dash, 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 you don't want to see it, okay? But if I put it as a fake, another version of space, so let's say client address and client name, and when you hit OK, and when you regenerate, REA, that's the result you get, okay? Don't worry about the grade, because when you print it out, it's not going to show, okay? This is just a trick. I'm just explaining, because some people, what they did is that they go in there and just remove it. And what happened is that, oh, that's a waste of time. Why don't you just ask me earlier, right? So those are basically the question. I want to educate people, like, because there's a lot of tricks that you can use, and it's just not like that. Now, what if, let's say, you made a mistake saying that, oh, I no longer need this this page. I want like a bigger page. There's a way you can change it. I'll show you how to change it pretty quickly. The first thing you want to do is that if you want to change the page size, go right-click here, go to Properties, okay, scroll all the way down until you find this little guy here, Sheet Creation Template. By now, by default, it's Arch E, but if you want to change it to something else, click on this, and you can pick whatever template you want to put in there. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go Arch D, vertical. Sorry. I know.
So cool.
I know. Okay, so what you do is that when you click on this and it say hit OK, it says that you want to apply it. I normally say yes. Okay. Now, if you have like certain requirement where you want to do 11 by 17, there's a folder specifically. You could say I want this to be 11 by 17 right here. Okay. Each of the subfolder you could put in like, this is the global control. This is like each subfolder has their own control for different page size. So you can have details, put it as a subfolder, and then say that's 11 by 17. Okay? So this is how you control like what page you want to go and whatever. And the nicest thing about this this thing is that it's always going to put it in the correct location. Let's see, where is okay. Okay, I copied that. I'm going to close that out. And what happened is that you see that drawing? Cover page, it's right there. So it's going to basically put it in the right location. As long as user follows exactly, that's fine. But just be careful. Do not create this, like, do not say, oh, new sheet on the outside. Let's say I'm putting in like that and say, next thing you know, you're going to get blank. It doesn't know where to go. Sometimes I've seen people just do this and go new sheet. Okay, let's say a whatever, right? And then test. There's an issue with that. Don't do that. The reason why is that when you double click, that's what you get. You know where it's placing it? It is placing it outside of your drawing. So basically what it's doing is that it's placing this sheet right there. And you have to know that this template is basically relative path. All the extra for relative. Every time you create a new sheet, make sure that it goes into that subfolder, or else you're going to get this mumbo jumbo mess. It's because they did it wrong. Okay? Just be aware, because people will create crap that they may not understand. They don't ask the question. I can understand, but as long as you understand, do not create outside of that subfolder, you're good. Okay? Because I already configured this pretty well. As long as people follow this, you should be okay. 90% of the time, it will resolve your issue. I'm going to remove that. Okay? Let's say, for example, you want to change sheets. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is that, let's say, for example, this cover page. I want to change the sheet. So when I change the sheet here, it will not change any sheet that you have created previously. Okay? It's only for the new sheet. Whenever you create a new sheet, it will create it. For existing sheet, what you have to do is that you have to go through model. Okay? Expand on that, go to standard. There is one called a template. And I want you to open that. Okay? What this does is that it has all the sheets within your project. You go in there, select whatever you want. Let's say, for example, I want the Arch DV. Okay? Let's assume that I don't want that. I want to like a H. Okay? You could copy all that information. Just select it. Copy with the base point. Okay? I have a pull down. If you want, there's another one. It's like copy with, yeah, there is one for the ribbons. I don't know. I can't find it. But if you know it, yeah, just use that. So what I would do is I just use the shortcut, Control Shift and C. Yeah, you can do copy paste, that's fine, but just be careful if you want to be like at that 0, 0 point. Yeah, just make sure that. Okay, so let's say copy base point and say I'm gonna go 0, 0. And what you're gonna do here is that get rid of all this, just delete it, and go edit, paste to origin coordinates. There we go. And the nicest thing about Sheet Set Manager is that when you regenerate, or EA, sorry, all that project information gets transferred over, okay? So that's the benefit of it. So do not overwrite this. I know some users just have that itchy hand that they want to modify this. You have to think about the whole project. Let's say, I'm not sure if you guys are going to get more complicated, right? Sometimes what happens is that you will work with ProjectWise. I'm not sure if you guys deal with the ProjectWise. ProjectWise is basically taking thousands of AutoCAD drawings. It has similar function to Sheet Set Manager, except that it's going to be done externally. And within that Sheet Set Manager, it controls all this field, okay? Think of that as kind of like, this is the stepping stone. You're not supposed to modify those values. This one, I know some user can do this, like say, oh, I'm going to go in and modify that value and say, oh, blah, 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 like that, right? The problem with this is that next time when there is an issue, people want to replace the sheet with another sheet, that information is stuck in there and you cannot override it, right? So you kind of have to make sure that you go into this information and you modify all the information in here, okay? Make sure people does that. Let's say this is 1 to 100. This is very, very common. I've seen people does things, they don't ask, okay? They destroy it, and the next time I have to go back and then I have to refill those information. Now, I also made a list routine to recover that, okay? EA. Okay, you see that 1 to 100 change. If someone actually made a mistake like this, there's always a way to recover it. So this is where this field becomes important, okay? So what I would do is that sheet set, that's a project number, and then it goes back to normal, okay? Just be careful, because I create that specifically for that, because user will modify that stuff. They don't never ask me. They assume that, oh, that's what project meant. That's how we do it in AutoCAD, but just be careful. Just use the Sheet Set Manager, okay? Because when you go to Revit side, it's the same idea. We want to train those people to kind of like, you know AutoCAD, when you transition to Revit, it's very similar. Any questions so far? I think I'm gonna go over time for that. You guys need any kind of educating on any specific part of the workflow or stuff like that? No? Well, one thing I always, before you guys go, this is very important. When you print PDFs, Adobe PDFs or whatever PDFs, there's a setting that I think whenever you start new in Office, I always tell people this is something you have to configure in your PDF. When you go to Device Manager and Printer, and let's say you have these Adobe PDF, and go to Properties or Printer Preferences, go to Layout, click on Advanced, and check out what is your print quality DPI. By default, it's always 12,000 DPI. That's too high, okay? When you print out any AutoCAD, let's say with the wipeout, with OLE objects, like an Excel, you printed a copy from the thing, it will quit, it will not print. It will give you either black, blotchy stuff, or it will not print. So what I typically recommend users is that the print quality, you kind of have to set it down to 300 DPI. Whenever you get a new computer, always configure it, because it's only for you. Nobody else has it, okay? This is not global. This is kind of like how when Adobe installs your machine, this is the manual configuration that you have to control, okay? But if you don't want to use Adobe within AutoCAD, I typically recommend people just use the AutoCAD PDF, okay? It's fine. So if you don't know the configuration, that's fine. But as soon as you go to Revit, totally different story, okay? Because Revit relies on Adobe PDFs or Bluebeam, whichever you have. If you don't have Adobe, you don't configure it, your print's going to be twice as long to print than the conventional, let's say if it's 300, it's going to be 5 times faster than if you're using 12,000 DPI. Just keep in mind, because it's something that user always miss. I always find that, user never asks. They say, why am I printing so slow? It's that reason, okay? All right, the other thing I should mention is that I know that some people like to print in-house. Just be careful. We have vendors. We have so many vendors we use. When you're doing in-house printing, keep it limit, right? If you're printing a check set, just print a check set. Don't print like a whole, I don't know, like one time I saw this 10 set, 70 pages, in-house printing, and a lot of our, well, not the IT, the accounting saying that, is this chargeable or not? Well, how should I charge it? Because they have a mixed bag of color, it's for them, it's more work for them, right? So you have to think about other people. Don't just assume that, oh, it's easy for me. But if the contract for the client saying that you have to print in-house, let the accounting know ahead of time so that you are performing this. Or else they're not going to know. They're going to say, assuming that this is just like any other project, okay? So a lot of the in-house printing, when you're printing with that device, let's say I'm going to go print that device. One thing you have to keep in mind is that if you want to get the best quality for your printer, that would be the kit, if I can find it. It's called the, this guy right here, 870, K870, PL07. If you don't know what it is, it's that PL means plotter, PR means it's printer, MF means multifunctional, okay? I probably described that, right? Sometimes what tends to happen is that people send 11/17 into the plotter, and all they get is this big chunk of wasted paper that they have to crop. Just be careful. It's done before. Somebody print 100 pages on that big plotter. You're not charging 8.5. You're charging the overall length, which is like 36 by 8.5. And just be careful. Okay, so when you click on this, there's a property that I want people to kind of configure. Just use the custom size. Sure, why not? Go to properties. Oh, actually, shoot. What happened? There's a property there. Okay, custom properties. Okay, so when you send it to a printer, if you want to get the best quality out of your print, I always change this photo to line quality, or actually CAD, sorry. The first one I always say is set it to CAD. Yeah, my mouse is a bit wonky. In color mode, you could say black or white or color, that's fine. If you choose color, that's fine. But this is where the default, you have to change to line quality. Okay? That's something that a user always miss. Because if you choose the default is always going to be default. It's going to give you whatever result you can. And sometimes I get complaints saying, why my printing is not looking like, whatever. Well, did you change the setting? No. Okay, that's the reason, right? So something I want people to be aware of, if you want to print the best quality, choose CAD and then choose line quality, okay? It will give you the best of the very sharp color. It looks like any prints, very nice, okay? Just something, tips and tricks. Unfortunately, the default cannot be changed, okay? It is what it is, so we just have to work within it. I'm just showing the users that if you want to print in-house, this is the quality I want people to choose. Okay, just be aware, because I know that people will complain. And make sure when you click on this, right, this is color, fast speed, multicolor, functional printer. Also check the paper size as well. Do you have enough? Okay, if you're printing like, let's say 3624, it's going to be, if this is running out, it will use the next one down there. Sometimes what tends to happen is that people put in the wrong roll, and what happens is that you're going to have print that gets cut off. Just be aware of that, okay? Just be careful. IT have this nailed down pretty good, okay? If you want to change paper, ask them to help you, assist you. If you want, I can show you how to do it. And let's say you're on the weekend and you have to print, I can show you how to load it, right? Just in case. But other than that, IT will help you, okay? Just double checking on that stuff. And again, don't use that as print like massive printers, right? Because we have I got calls saying, can you approve this? Can you, why is this people? We have vendors very competitive price. Okay, so if you send it to them, they will tell you how much they charge. So what I have is that I have this IBI document in there. You can look at it, and then there is one called the reprographic price, and you just click on this. Just go to Ken West. We're in Canada West and in Vancouver. Okay, we have all this in-house printing. Typically, in-house printing is going to cost more than the outside. Okay, if you want the fastest speed with color, with no rush job charge out, I would recommend Resolution because they would just do the best. Just click on it and then just say, this is how they do requests. But this is kind of old, so a lot of it, they're all digital. So what you do is that you could go into, just go to Google and just say Resolution, Repro, Graphics, right? And then you just go up there and then just put it up. But before you do anything, always check with the client who's their preferred vendor because they have an account with them. If you go with certain vendors that they may not have, we may have to kind of build that stuff to ourselves. Just be careful. Always ask. Because it's something that people don't ask. Say, who should we use? Well, it depends on what client. If you're working with anybody upstairs, let's say working on healthcare, educational, they will prefer the cheapest, the fastest, without charging any overtime or late fees or whatever, like rush fees. Typically, I use Resolution for that because they basically cover all that free. They're the cheapest, they're the the most efficient, and then they print color, high volume color, for pennies, right? So go with them. But if you have to do quality like controls and all that stuff, there's arc printing. I know some people use Pat Glue before, but they merge with arc printing. They're the biggest. You also have to be aware if you're working on a project outside of Vancouver. Check which company has offices next to your building that you're working on, okay? So that you don't rely on the shipping costs going to be, astronomical because they have to print it from there, ship it out there, okay? Check ahead of time because some of this vendor has Burnaby office, has Vancouver office, and then has like branch in Abbotsford or somewhere if you're working on that project. Always check, okay? Arc printing has probably the biggest, okay, because they have offices in China, UK, anywhere around the world. So if you have to have a project somewhere that, those are the person that deal with that. All right, I won't keep you too long. So if you want to do one-on-one, feel free to ask me, all right? And that's pretty much it. Okay. Thank you.